Well, hello, friends. I am Pastor Michelle from Harmony Creek Church, and today I had the privilege of leading Salon. And during Salon, we talked about the story of Amistad. So I'm going to read you this children's book so you can know about the story of Amistad as well. And this is kind of in place of my sermon since I didn't preach today. So today, actually, in the life of the UCC, today is Amistad Sunday. So this is the story of a slave ship. In August 1839, two officers on a Coast Guard ship spotted something strange in the waters off Long Island. It was a ship, long and black. It was flying a Spanish flag, and its name was Amistad. In Spanish, that means friendship. What was so strange about the ship? Its sails were in shreds. There was no captain. The ship was just drifting, going nowhere, and a group of black men were on deck yelling. What were they doing? Why had the ship come to New York? Who were the people on board? The officers decided to find out, so they rowed out to the ship. They did not know that they were now part of one of the strangest and most interesting stories in American history. The story began many months earlier in Sierra Leone on the west coast of Africa. A man named Sangbe Pa lived in a small village. He belonged to the Mende tribe. Sangbe had grown up in a round house with a grass cone-shaped roof. Later on, he built the same kind of house for his wife and 3 kids. He was a wealthy rice farmer and a leader among his people. One day, Sangbe was taking a walk alone. Suddenly, 2 men surrounded him. Sangbe fought to get away, but the men had guns. They were slave catchers. They were kidnapping him. Sangbe was dragged into the belly of a slave ship. Hundreds of men, women, and children were packed inside. The ship was bound for Cuba. Chained together in the darkness like animals, the people cried. They begged for mercy. Sangbe thought he would go mad. There was no room to stretch or turn, and the smell was sickening. It took 2 months for the slave ship to cross the Atlantic and reach Cuba. Many of the Africans had died. Some had been killed. Some had killed themselves during the horrible trip. But Sangbe clung to life. What lay ahead? He did not know, but he did not lose hope. He wanted to see his family again. I will live for them, he told himself. He would find a way back home. In Cuba, the Africans were given Spanish names. Sangbe became Joseph Sink. Then a few days later, he was herded onto another ship, the Amistad. It was bound for Brazil on the east coast of South America. New slaves brought new prices there. High prices, actually. So Sinke tried to tell the sailors that he was not a slave. He and the others were not animals. The captain didn't listen. He whipped Sinke instead. On board the ship, Sinke told the others to be brave, be strong, survive. He would find a way to free them. In the rotten wood of the hold was a loose nail. Sinke had a plan. He worked to pull the nail out of the wall that held the chains. His hand was bloody and sore, but it was free. He was able to unlock the chains and free his other hand. Quietly and quickly, the other Africans freed themselves. Under the cover of night, the Africans attacked swiftly, deadly. They found sharp knives and killed the captain. Then they killed the cook. Sailors leaped overboard. Some escaped in lifeboats. Only 2 Spanish sailors remained on the ship. Sinke used sign language. He told them, "Sail us back to Africa or die." The sailors agreed, but they had a plan of their own. To return to Africa, the Amistad had to sail east. During the day, the ship sailed east toward the rising sun, but at night the Africans could not tell which way the ship was heading. So the Spanish sailors headed north at night, day in and day out. The ship zigzagged up the eastern coast of the U.S. By August 1839, the Amistad had reached the waters off the coast of Long Island. That was when 2 U.S. officers spotted the ship. On board the Amistad, the officers asked the Spanish sailors what had happened. The sailors said the Amistad was a slave ship. They told how Joseph Sink and 53 other slaves had killed the captain and taken over the ship. The sailors were hostages. All that was true, but the 2 Spanish sailors claimed that the Africans had been born in Cuba. That was a lie. That may seem just like a little lie, but it made a big difference. In 1839, the U.S. people could still own slaves in many states. Slavery didn't end for good until 1865. But already some laws put limits on slavery. It was against the law to kidnap Africans and make them slaves. That was exactly what had happened on the Amistad. Cinque did not know about the U.S. laws. How could he? He didn't even know where the Amistad had landed. But one thing he was sure of, the Spanish sailors were lying to the other white men. The Amistad was taken to the nearest big port that was in Connecticut. A judge said the Africans had committed a terrible crime. They were charged with murder and mutiny. That meant taking control of the ship. A trial was set for September 1839, no bail. Everyone was put in jail in New Haven, Connecticut, even the kids. People stood in long lines and paid money to gawk at the Africans. Women giggled and grown men made faces. They acted like it was a silly circus sideshow. Cinque thought these people were just as strange. He and the other Africans turned their backs to them. Alone in his jail cell, Cinque worried. Would he ever see home again? He wasn't so sure. What Cinque didn't know was that the Africans had friends in this strange country. Many people in northern states believed slavery was a sin. They were called abolitionists. They wanted to abolish or end slavery. Some abolitionists heard about the Amistad. They didn't believe the Spanish sailor's story. If the blacks on the Amistad were born in Cuba, why didn't any of them speak Spanish? They must have been kidnapped from Africa illegally. The abolitionists found a famous lawyer to help the Africans. His name was Roger Sherman Baldwin. He too was against slavery. His grandfather had signed the Declaration of Independence. Baldwin knew the job wasn't going to be easy. First of all, he couldn't talk to his clients. In fact, he didn't even know what African language they spoke. He tried using sign language. That didn't work. Baldwin drew pictures in the dirt. That was no better. So Cinque knew this man wanted to help, but he too felt helpless. Then Baldwin learned that Cinque's language was Mende. That was a start. He found a black man who spoke Mende. His name was James Covey. He too had been kidnapped from Africa. But Covey was lucky. He was set free and had become a sailor. Through Covey, Through Covey, Baldwin and Cinque could finally understand each other. We want to be free was the first thing Cinque told Baldwin. Then Cinque told the whole terrible story. Yes, Baldwin knew that the Africans had been kidnapped. This was the heart of what he would say in court. On January 8, 1840, a trial began. The New Haven courthouse was packed. Baldwin said that Africans were free people, not property, not animals. They had been kidnapped. On the Amistad, they had been defending themselves, the same as any man here would, Baldwin said in the crowded courtroom. During the 6-day trial, Cinque and some of the other Africans took the witness stand. They were farmers and craftsmen, fathers and sons, daughters and sisters. They were members of a new community. Cinque told how much freedom meant to the Mende people. They loved art, music, and dance, just as in the U.S. The Mende believed in laws to govern people. They had judges and juries. We are men too, Cinque told the judge. The judge agreed. He ruled that the Amistad Africans were born free and still are free and not slaves. What a victory. Cinque and the others thought the terrible time was over at last. But it was too soon to celebrate. Their lawyer, Roger Baldwin, had bad news. The government of Spain insisted that the Africans were their property. Didn't matter what a judge in New Haven said. Even worse, Martin Van Buren, the president of the U.S., agreed with Spain. What was going to happen now? There had to be another trial. The Supreme Court would judge the case. The Supreme Court was the highest court in the U.S., but the new trial would not take place for another year. In the meantime, the Amistad Africans went back to jail. Cinque was angry. Still, he told the Africans, do not lose hope. Do not lose hope. The people of New Haven were on the African side. The Africans didn't belong in jail. It was dirty. The food was terrible. Some of the Africans fell sick. Fresh water and dry, clean clothes were brought to them. Still, everyone had to stay in jail, even the kids. Roger Baldwin needed help to win the new trial. It was clear that the president was not going to help, but maybe someone else important would. So Baldwin went to see a former president, John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams had been president from 1825 to 1829. He was also the son of President John Adams. Now he was a member of the House of Representatives. He was 73 years old, but his mind was sharp. His tongue was even sharper, and he knew all about the law. John Quincy Adams visited the Africans in jail. He was shocked at how young they were. Not one of them is over 30. By now, 2 of the Mende people had learned to write in English. They sent a letter to Adams. Please tell the great court our story. Adams was moved by their plea for help. He was also worried. Oh, how shall I do justice to this case and to these men? He would ask. But he would try his best. Months passed. Many of the sick prisoners died in jail. By the next trial on March 1st, 1841, there were only 37 Amistad Africans still alive. The Supreme Court was in Washington, D.C. To win the case, the lawyers had to convince at least 5 judges that the Africans were not slaves. But 5 of the judges were from slave states. Would any of them believe the Africans were innocent? First, the side against the Africans presented its case. The lawyer said the Africans were on a Spanish ship. They were the property of Spain. They should be returned to Spain for trial. Next, it was Roger Baldwin's turn. Over 3 days, he spoke for more than 14 hours. That would be one heck of a sermon, wouldn't it? We're not talking about what to do with a chair or table, but flesh and blood human beings, he told the judges. Then finally, it was John Quincy Adams' turn. He was famous as a great speaker, and he said, "These men are not criminals. They were defending themselves as free men." Adams compared Cinque and the others to heroes in the American Revolution. Patrick Henry had fought freedom, and Patrick Henry was known for saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." Was Patrick Henry a criminal? Adams asked the judges. It was very quiet in the courtroom. The only sound was Adams' booming voice. "No," he said. He was a hero. A majority of the Supreme Court justices agreed. Adams won the case. The Amistad Africans were free at last. When they learned the news, they leaped for joy. Nobody, not even the president, could change the decision of the Supreme Court. It was March 9th, 1841. 2 long and terrible years had passed since their kidnapping in Africa. They wanted to show their thanks. They presented John Quincy Adams with the Bible. Inside were the words, "We thank you very much because you make us free." After all his time in the U.S., Cinque knew English well. He rarely spoke it in public. However, when it was time to say his goodbyes, his words were in English, and he said, "My friends, I thank you all." Cinque and the others set sail from New York on November 27th. The ship was named the Gentleman. James Covey, the Mende sailor and translator, returned to Africa with them. They arrived in Freetown, Sierra Leone on January 11th, 1842. They were home. Home at last. No one really knows what happened to Cinque. There were reports that he was happy and well at home with his wife and children, living in freedom again. In the U.S., slavery continued for more than 20 years. It took the Civil War and a constitutional amendment to end slavery for good. Still, the Amistad case gave hope to all people fighting against it. "We are men too," Cinque had said at his trial. His words stabbed at the very heart of slavery. And so what a story of people fighting for freedom. For freedom. We're all born free. And yes, we are still fighting for that freedom in our country today. And that is heartbreaking. I invite you in this week and in the days ahead to think about our country. Can we really say of the United States of America that we are home of the brave? Wait, no. Hold on. Sorry. I totally forgot the whole catchphrase there. Hold on. Hold on, sorry. I'm sorry. I've got a lot going on in my life. Home of the free? Wait. Can we really say that we are land of the free and home of the brave? And it's my opinion that we're not. We're not land of the free. We're still working on that, right? Let us bravely continue to work for freedom. Because the thing is, we're not free until all of us are free. Let's never forget that. God bless you all, and may you all know you are God's beloved, now and forever.